Hey there, I'm back. You thought I was done. Well, I thought I was done too. But election 2016 is a weird election. And there still seems to be a lot of information out there that isn't quite accurate. So I wanted to do a brief video about what's going on now at the Board of Elections and all Board of Elections throughout New York State and also probably most of the country. So now that the election is over, I keep getting people saying, hey, your job is done, right? You know, you guys did a great job. Board of Elections all done with. You guys can go on vacation. Not so. Boards of elections throughout New York State and throughout the country are now really getting into the nitty-gritty of what we do after an election. And that has to do with a lot of things. Getting the machines back, getting the bags back, going through them. We had 181 poll sites in Onondaga County. We got to get all that back, audit the machines, do our hand counting of the ballots on 3% of the machines. But the most important thing we do is counting the affidavit and absentee ballots. And there seems to be a lot of misinformation out there about this, so I'm just putting this out there. Affidavits and absentee ballots are counted each and every year. Because this is, one of the biggest myths out there is that if a race isn't close, the Board of Elections just ignores any paper ballots that are put out there. That's not true. We have to count them by law, and also to give voter history to the voters who did decide to vote. So here's how it's happening. Right now, we're going through all of the bags from all of our 427 or 447 precincts or election districts that are in Onondaga County. Those bags we go through, get any affidavit ballots. Affidavit ballots are ballots where people show up to their polling place and they're not in the poll book. So they vote on what's called an affidavit ballot. They fill out a form. The ballot is put inside an envelope and sealed. And this is done in the presence of an election inspector. And then now that we get those affidavits ballots, and we're going to get probably close to 1,000, 2,000 affidavit ballots in Onondaga County, we will rule on each one. My co-commissioner and I, along with our staff, look them up, make sure that they should have voted, counted. They either were inactive, they fell off the active voter rolls because we got a mail check back, or they moved, and that's a common one. They moved since the last time they voted, and that's why they weren't in the poll book, and they never updated the registration. When we rule on an affidavit ballot, whether to count it or not count it, we will then eventually, after all the affidavit ballots are ruled on, we will then open them and count them. And each affidavit ballot, whether it's ruled on as a yes or ruled on as a no, the front form that is filled out is a registration form, and we update that voter's registration. So the next time they go vote, the proper information is in the system, and they'll be in the poll book. If they're not registered, which, there's going to be a great deal of voters that are not registered to vote, that voted by affidavit ballot, more than likely those votes will not count this year, but the voter will get registered so they can, be registered to vote next year. And anytime an affidavit ballot is filled out by a voter, if it is not counted, for whatever reason, they're at the wrong polling place, they're not registered in the first place, they're not registered in this county, those are the three main reasons why they don't count. We will send them a letter letting them know why we didn't count their ballot and what actions were taken, so the next time those ballots will be counted. Absentee ballots are a whole different story. And one other thing about affidavit ballots before I move on. Before we ever open them up and count the ballots, we also check our poll books to make sure that somebody didn't go to one polling place, vote by affidavit ballot, and then go to their old polling place and vote in person. That way we make sure that nobody's vote counts twice. We don't have that happen very often, but it is something that we keep in mind. I see a lot of people like that. We do check that. So that's why it takes a little time. We can't just go through them and run them through the machine. We have to make sure that these ballots are not counting twice. Now, absentee ballots are handled a little differently than the affidavit ballots. Absentee ballots are ballots by registered voters that requested an absentee, and we mailed them a ballot, or they came into our office, filled it out, because they weren't going to be in town on election day. We have over 13,000 of those affidavit or absentee ballots in Onondaga County. Those ballots are, we don't start opening those up until 13 days after election day. The reason for that is because that's the number of days it takes sometimes for them to travel to us. As long as it's postmarked before election day, they have up until 13 days to get to our Board of Elections, and then they're counted. Now, on absentees, we also have a double check on that as well to make sure nobody's voting twice there as well. Because if you're in Onondaga County or your home county on election day, you're supposed to go to the polling place, even if you filled out an absentee. When you went to the polling place, the election inspector, next to your name, there would be a red absentee mark on your poll book, and we will double check that as well, and they will call that in, tell us to pull your absentee ballot if that happened on election day, if you voted by absentee but you went into the polling place. So we would pull that ballot as well. Now, I think where the confusion comes in is a lot of people think, oh, well, if a race isn't close on election day, most races aren't. On election day, we know who's won the race most of the time. We don't count these things, but we do. We count them each and every time. And but we may not count them under the guidance and observation of parties and candidates, because, to be quite honest, the races are over and they don't necessarily show up to the absentee ballot counts. There's only one race in Onondaga County that is within the absentee ballot margin, but again, there's always some race that's within the absentee ballot margin. That's the Spafford Town Justice race. There's about 100 absentee ballots and affidavits and a vote margin of about 63. So while more than likely that race is probably going to fall out the way it falls out, that's one race that we'll wait until all the absentee ballots come in and have the campaigns and parties decide whether they want to come in and observe that race. With those open, so those will be specially segregated. But any affidavit ballots, and absentee ballots, they then, once they're ruled on, and all the absentee ballots are good unless they came back with a wrong postmark, because we've already ruled on whether they're registered voters or not. Those are going to be counted about 2 weeks after the election day. Again, they're opened by teams of election and personnel, one Democrat, one Republican. They're ruled on by one Democrat, one Republican. And the rule at the Board of Elections is if there's if the commissioners split on a ruling where the one commissioner says a ballot's good, one commissioner says a ballot is no good, then the ballot counts. If you have to have both commissioners agreeing to throw a ballot out. So the tie goes to the runner. That saying, it really goes to the voter. We try to err on the side of counting votes in election law. So the absentee and affidavit ballots we're going through that now. That's why when you see some sources out there that might say, oh, well, these boards of elections, they don't count those things, that's just not true. We always count them. And for the most part, most affidavit ballots are going to be counted. And the ones that are not counted are going to be get a letter Y. The same with absentee ballots. Most absentee ballots, much more absentee ballots will be counted. But there may be a few absentee ballots that aren't counted, like they filled out the form incorrectly or something like that. And then they'll get notified why we don't count an absentee ballot, as long as we know, as long as it's at a stage where we know who put in that absentee ballot. Because again, we try to keep those ballots anonymous as much as anything we can. Now, court orders, we've been asked about what happens to the court orders. We had about 250 court orders on election day, and when a court order is approved, they get a court order and they go to their polling place and vote by regular ballot at the voting machine. So those court order ballots should already be counted in the machine count that happened on election night, because they got a court order from a judge saying that they should be allowed to vote, and they got counted and voted on the machine. They're separate from the affidavit ballots and the absentee ballots. So those should have been counted. And any court order, it's the same thing happens with them as we have the affidavits. We get voter registrations from them, so their voter registrations are updated. So the next time they go vote, they're in the poll book and they don't have to get a court order. So that's, something that we do to make sure that the reasons why they got a court order to vote don't happen again. So again, all the boards of elections across the United States and in New York State are going through this process right now. A lot of them worked over the weekend. Some of them worked on Veterans Day. We worked on Veterans Day here in Onondaga County because there's so many absentees and affidavits to get through. And, Board of Election staffs are not always the most staffed things in the world as well. So we have a lot of work that we have to get done. So if you know a Board of Elections employee, or a election inspector that worked on election day, thank them for their service. They had a hard election as well. It was a lot of passion out there. So make sure that you thank them for their service. Now, once all of these ballots are counted, there will be a thing called certified results. Those certified results usually are done around December 1st. And then that's where the official count happens. And we will get official counts for the race, such as turnout and other things. Once we get that, Onondaga County will post on our Facebook page that certified results are available, and you can request downloads of those as well for any governmental unit that you need or whatever race that you're looking at. And then voter histories will be available as well, where, voting history is public knowledge. We know if you voted or not. We don't know how, but we know if you voted or not. And so that's why it's important to go vote, because it's a record. It's out there. And we know who votes and who doesn't vote, and it's recorded each and every year. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to put a comment in the comment section, or give me a call, or call our board, 435-VOTE. We're still here working, and we'll continue to work and get ready for the next election. Thank you very much, and remember, we count every ballot every time. It's always ruled on, and so anybody telling you differently, they're just plain lying to you, or they're maybe ignorant of the facts themselves. Each Board of Election will count every absentee and every affidavit ballot if they're ruled good, and they will rule on every one, regardless of the margin of the race. Thanks a lot, and I'm probably not going anywhere. Bye.